I'm Dr. Helena Blackwood, and I've been an oncologist at Meridian Cancer Institute in Phoenix, Arizona for 19 years, or at least I was, until I submitted my resignation 4 months ago. During my career, I've treated over 5,200 cancer patients, witnessed the cruel progression of terminal diagnoses, and fought battles where hope seemed like a cruel joke. But what I'm about to tell you is about the one case that made me question everything I thought I knew about cancer, the human immune system, and the very boundaries of what we consider medically possible. Meridian Cancer Institute is one of the premier oncology centers in the Southwest, serving patients from across Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada. As the director of advanced oncology, I specialized in what we call end-stage interventions, patients who arrived at our doors after conventional treatments had failed. Stage 4 pancreatic cancers, aggressive glioblastomas, metastatic triple-negative breast cancers, and rare sarcomas that textbooks barely mentioned. I had built my reputation on taking cases other oncologists wouldn't touch, patients whose families were told to get their affairs in order and make the most of the time left. These were the cases that demanded everything from you: your knowledge, your creativity, your willingness to try experimental protocols that existed more in theory than practice. My team at Meridian was handpicked for their expertise in impossible cases. Dr. Sophia Chen Martinez, my senior attending physician, had trained at Sloan Kettering and specialized in rare malignancies. Our chief research coordinator, Dr. James Whitfield, held 3 degrees in molecular biology and had published over 40 papers on cancer genomics. Our head oncology nurse, Maria Santos, could detect subtle changes in patients that our most sophisticated monitoring equipment missed. If there was a way to fight the unfightable, this team would find it. The institute itself was a marvel of modern medicine. We had access to cutting-edge immunotherapy protocols, genomic sequencing capabilities that could map a tumor's DNA in 48 hours, and experimental treatments that weren't available anywhere else in the region. Our survival rates for stage 4 cancers were among the highest in the country, but even we had our limits. Some cancers were simply too aggressive, too advanced, too resistant to every weapon in our arsenal. The case that would ultimately end my career began on a sweltering August evening in 2023. I was in my office reviewing patient files when my secure phone buzzed at 11:34 p.m. The caller ID showed Dr. Chen Martinez from the emergency intake unit. "Helena, I need you down here immediately." Sophia's voice was tense. "We have a 38-year-old woman who claims she was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer 8 months ago at Mayo Clinic. She says she was given 3-4 months to live and refused treatment. But Helena, you need to see her current scans. Something is very wrong here." I grabbed my lab coat and made my way to the emergency intake unit, a specialized area of our facility designed for urgent cancer consultations. Sophia met me at the elevator, holding a thick patient file and wearing the expression I'd seen countless times when we encountered something that didn't fit the textbook. "Her name is Isabella Reyes Chen," Sophia said as we walked. "She drove here from Tucson tonight because she said she needed to understand what was happening to her body. Helena, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like her imaging results." I entered consultation room 12 and met Isabella Reyes Chen, a 38-year-old high school mathematics teacher from Tucson. She was sitting upright, alert, with good color and no visible signs of distress. Her eyes were bright and focused, and she appeared to have a healthy weight. Everything about her presentation contradicted what I was about to read in her medical file. "Dr. Blackwood," she said, standing to shake my hand with a firm grip, "thank you for seeing me so late. I know this is going to sound impossible, but I think my body has done something that medicine says can't happen." I sat down across from her, opening the file Sophia had prepared. "Isabella, Dr. Martinez tells me you were diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at Mayo Clinic. Can you walk me through that experience?" Isabella settled back in her chair, her voice steady and clear. "Last December, I started having severe abdominal pain that radiated to my back. I was losing weight rapidly, about 3 pounds a week, and I was exhausted all the time. My primary care physician in Tucson referred me to Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale. She pulled out a manila folder containing what appeared to be extensive medical documentation. Dr. Richard Ashford, the chief pancreatic surgeon there, ran every test imaginable: CT scans, MRI, endoscopic ultrasound, and ultimately a biopsy. On January 15, 2023, he told me I had stage 4 pancreatic adenocarcinoma with metastasis to my liver and lung. I opened her Mayo Clinic records, and what I saw made my stomach drop. The imaging was devastating. A 4.2 centimeter mass in the head of the pancreas, with clear invasion into surrounding tissues, multiple liver lesions, the largest measuring 3.8 centimeters, 2 pulmonary nodules in the right lung, The pathology report confirmed poorly differentiated adenocarcinoma with aggressive cellular characteristics. This was exactly the kind of death sentence I'd delivered to hundreds of families. Pancreatic cancer is one of the most lethal malignancies we encounter. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer has a 5-year survival rate of less than 5%. Most patients are dead within 6 months of diagnosis, and that's with aggressive treatment. Isabella, I said carefully, these records from Mayo Clinic show very advanced pancreatic cancer. Dr. Ashford recommended treatment, I assume. He suggested aggressive chemotherapy with FOLFIRINOX, followed by possible surgical resection if the tumors responded well, but he was honest about the prognosis. Even with treatment, he gave me 8 to 12 months. Without treatment, maybe 3 to 4 months. Isabella's voice remained steady, but I could see the weight of those conversations in her eyes. I'm a math teacher, Dr. Blackwood. I understand statistics and probabilities. I looked at the data, considered the quality of life during chemotherapy, and made the decision to decline treatment. I wanted to spend whatever time I had left feeling as much like myself as possible. This was a decision I'd seen many patients make, and I respected it. Sometimes the treatment can be worse than the disease, particularly when the prognosis is so grim. So you went home and waited? I asked. For the first few months, yes, and everything Dr. Ashford predicted came true. The pain got worse. I lost another 20 pounds. I could barely get out of bed some days. I had to take a leave of absence from teaching. My family was preparing for the worst. Isabella paused, looking out the window at the Phoenix skyline. But then something started changing. Around May, the pain began to subside. At first I thought it was just a good day, the kind terminal patients sometimes have before the final decline. But the good days kept coming. The pain continued to lessen. I started sleeping through the night again. I leaned forward, intrigued despite myself. Did you change anything about your routine, your diet, take any alternative treatments? Nothing dramatic. I started doing gentle yoga, tried to manage stress better, ate more organic foods. But Dr. Blackwood, these were small lifestyle changes, not miracle cures. By June, I was eating normally again. By July, I'd gained back 15 pounds. Last month, I couldn't feel the abdominal mass that I'd been able to palpate since my diagnosis. Isabella reached into her purse and pulled out an appointment card. That's when I went back to Mayo Clinic for follow-up imaging. Dr. Ashford was confused by the results. He ordered additional scans, repeated blood work, even suggested the possibility of diagnostic error in my original case. What did those follow-up scans show? Significant reduction in all tumor masses. The pancreatic tumor had shrunk by more than 60%. The liver lesions were barely detectable. The lung nodules were completely gone. My CA19-9 levels had dropped from over 2,000 to 145. I felt a chill run down my spine. CA19-9 is a tumor marker for pancreatic cancer. Normal levels are below 37. A level over 2,000 indicates extensive, aggressive disease. A drop to 145, while still elevated, suggested dramatic tumor regression. Isabella, that's remarkable improvement. But why did you come here tonight instead of continuing care at Mayo? She looked directly at me with an intensity that was unsettling. Because when I went back to Dr. Ashford last week for my latest scans, he told me something was impossible. He said my imaging from this month shows no evidence of cancer anywhere in my body. 0. Complete radiological remission of stage 4 pancreatic cancer without any treatment. I sat back in my chair, trying to process what she was telling me. Complete spontaneous remission of pancreatic cancer is so rare that most oncologists will never see a case in their entire career. The medical literature contains maybe a dozen documented cases worldwide, and most of those involved some form of treatment or intervention. Dr. Ashford said he's never seen anything like it in 30 years of practice, Isabella continued. He wants to present my case at medical conferences and involve researchers, maybe even write papers about it. But Dr. Blackwood, I don't want to be a medical curiosity. I want to understand what happened to me. I spent the next hour performing the most thorough physical examination I'd ever conducted. Isabella's abdomen was soft, non-tender, with no palpable masses. Her lymph nodes were completely normal. Her skin had healthy color and elasticity. She showed no signs of the weight loss, jaundice or abdominal distension typically associated with advanced pancreatic cancer. Isabella, we need to run comprehensive imaging and laboratory studies. I want to see exactly what we're dealing with today, not just rely on outside reports. That's why I came here. I trust Meridian's reputation, and I wanted an independent evaluation. I ordered an immediate CT scan of her abdomen, chest and pelvis, comprehensive metabolic panel, complete blood count, tumor markers including CA19-9 and CEA, and inflammatory markers.
If Isabella truly had experienced complete remission of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, I needed to document it with our own testing.
While we waited for results, I called Dr. Ashford at Mayo Clinic. "Richard, this is Helena Blackwood at Meridian. I have Isabella Reyes-Chen here, and I need to understand her case better." "Helena, thank God you called. I had been losing sleep over this case. I've reviewed her imaging from January at least 20 times. That woman had textbook stage 4 pancreatic adenocarcinoma. Extensive, aggressive, terminal. I've seen thousands of these cases, and I know what I'm looking at. But her current imaging shows complete resolution. No primary tumor, no metastases, normal pancreatic architecture. It's like the cancer was never there. Helena, in 32 years of practice, I've never seen spontaneous complete remission of advanced pancreatic cancer. The literature says it happens in less than 1 in 10,000 cases, and most of those are poorly documented. Richard, could there have been diagnostic error in the original case?" There was a long pause. I considered that. I had our pathology department re-review the original biopsy slides. Definitely adenocarcinoma, poorly differentiated, with lymphovascular invasion. I had radiology re-examine the original imaging. Definitely pancreatic mass with hepatic and pulmonary metastases. There was no diagnostic error. 2 hours later, Isabella's test results came back, and I found myself staring at data that challenged everything I understood about pancreatic cancer. Her CT scan showed a completely normal pancreas, with no evidence of masses, surgical changes or scarring. Her liver was entirely normal. Her lungs were clear. Her CA19-9 level was 28 minor, well within normal range. Her complete blood count, metabolic panel, and inflammatory markers were all perfect. I called our chief radiologist, Dr. Michael Torres, at home. "Mike, I need you to come in and review some imaging. This is urgent." "Helena, it's almost midnight. Can't this wait until morning?" "Mike, I need you to compare current imaging with outside films from 8 months ago. I think we're looking at complete spontaneous remission of stage 4 pancreatic cancer." There was silence on the other end. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Dr. Torres arrived and spent 2 hours comparing Isabella's current scans with her original Mayo Clinic imaging. He called in our senior CT technician to verify image quality and our night shift pathologist to review the original biopsy reports. "Helena," Dr. Torres said finally, "I've confirmed patient identity using anatomical landmarks, previous surgical scars and bone architecture. This is definitely the same patient. The original imaging clearly shows extensive pancreatic adenocarcinoma with metastatic disease. Tonight's imaging shows complete resolution with normal organ architecture. Any possibility of technical error, image mix-up, patient misidentification, I've checked everything 3 times. Same patient, accurate imaging, impossible outcome." Our pathologist, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, reviewed the original Mayo Clinic biopsy results. "The pathology is clear," she said. "Poorly differentiated adenocarcinoma with aggressive features. This was definitely cancer, and it was definitely advanced." I spent the next 6 hours running additional tests. Repeat CT scans from different angles, MRI with contrast, PET scan to detect any metabolically active lesions, and comprehensive tumor marker panel. Every single test confirmed the same impossible result. Isabella Reyes-Chen had no evidence of cancer anywhere in her body. At 6:30 a.m., I sat down with Isabella to discuss the results. "Isabella, I've run every test available. Your current imaging and laboratory studies show no evidence of cancer. Based on tonight's evaluation, you appear to be in complete remission." She looked at me with a mixture of relief and bewilderment. "How is that possible, Dr. Blackwood? People don't just spontaneously recover from stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Medically speaking, you're right. Spontaneous remission of advanced pancreatic cancer is extraordinarily rare. But Isabella, the evidence is clear. Whatever happened to you, your body somehow eliminated the cancer completely. Over the next 72 hours, I kept Isabella in the hospital for observation and additional testing. I wanted to understand not just what had happened, but how it had happened. During our conversations, I probed deeper into her experience during the months when her cancer was presumably regressing. Isabella, think back to May when you first noticed improvements. Was there anything specific that happened around that time?" She was quiet for several minutes, staring out the hospital window at the desert landscape. "Dr. Blackwood, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound unscientific, maybe even crazy. At this point, nothing sounds crazy to me. Around April, when I was at my sickest, I started having these incredibly vivid dreams. Not normal dreams, but experiences where I felt like I was inside my own body, watching the cancer. I could see the tumors as these dark, aggressive masses, and I felt like I was fighting them somehow. This wasn't the first time I'd heard patients describe unusual experiences during their cancer journey, but given Isabella's outcome, I found myself listening more carefully than usual. In these dreams, I felt like my immune system was learning, adapting, becoming stronger. It sounds ridiculous, but it was as if my body was teaching itself how to recognize and destroy the cancer cells. The dreams became more frequent and more intense as my physical symptoms improved. Did you tell Dr. Ashford about these experiences? No. How do you tell an oncologist that you think your dreams cured your cancer? But Dr. Blackwood, the timing was too precise to be coincidence. The dreams started in April. I began feeling better in May, and by August, the cancer was gone. I made detailed notes about Isabella's subjective experiences, even though they fell far outside conventional medical understanding. In cases this unusual, every piece of information might be relevant. Isabella, did you make any other changes during this period? Diet, exercise, stress management, spiritual practices? I started meditating daily, which I'd never done before. I began eating more anti-inflammatory foods, though nothing extreme. I spent more time in nature, tried to reduce stress. But these were gradual lifestyle modifications, not dramatic interventions. Certainly nothing that conventional medicine would expect to cure stage 4 cancer. What about supplements, alternative treatments, herbal remedies? I took some basic vitamins, vitamin D, omega-3s, a multivitamin, nothing exotic or experimental. I researched alternative cancer treatments online, but decided against them. I was committed to my decision not to pursue aggressive interventions. Word of Isabella's case spread rapidly through Meridian Cancer Institute. By the third day, colleagues from every department were requesting to review her files. The medical director, Dr. Patricia Hendricks, called an emergency meeting of our tumor board to discuss the case. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Hendricks began, we have a case that challenges our fundamental understanding of pancreatic cancer progression and treatment. Dr. Blackwood will present the details. I spent 45 minutes walking through Isabella's case with our multidisciplinary team of oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, pathologists, and researchers. The room remained silent throughout my presentation, but I could see the skepticism and concern on many faces. Dr. Robert Chen, our chief of surgical oncology, spoke first. Helena, what's the possibility of diagnostic error in the original case? Could Mayo have misread the imaging or pathology? I've personally spoken with Dr. Ashford and reviewed all original documentation. The diagnosis was accurate. Multiple specialists confirmed stage 4 adenocarcinoma with extensive metastatic disease. Dr. Sarah Martinez, our head of research, asked the question I'd been dreading. What's our institutional liability here? If we validate this case as genuine spontaneous remission, what does that say about our treatment protocols? About patients we've lost? The room fell uncomfortably silent. Everyone understood the implications. If Isabella's case was genuine, it raised disturbing questions about our understanding of cancer biology and treatment necessity. Dr. Hendricks finally spoke. Helena, this case needs to be documented meticulously. I want every test verified, every piece of evidence confirmed. If we're going to claim spontaneous remission of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, we need irrefutable proof. Patricia, I've already run every available test. The evidence is clear. Then we need to understand how this happened. What can Isabella's case teach us about cancer biology, immune function, or treatment approaches? I spent the following weeks diving deep into medical literature on spontaneous cancer remission. What I found was both fascinating and disturbing. The phenomenon, while rare, was more documented than I'd previously realized. Dr. William Boyd's 1966 study identified 176 cases of spontaneous regression across all cancer types. Dr. Tilden Everson's research documented over 200 cases with follow-up data. More recent studies suggested the incidence might be higher than reported, possibly due to underreporting or misclassification, but pancreatic cancer was different. The literature contained only a handful of documented cases of spontaneous remission, and most involved partial regression rather than complete resolution. Isabella's case appeared to be one of the most dramatic and well-documented examples in medical history. I reached out to Dr. Andrew Weil at the University of Arizona, who had researched spontaneous remission extensively. Dr. Weil, I have a case of complete spontaneous remission of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I need to understand what might have triggered this response. Dr. Blackwood, such cases are extraordinarily rare but not impossible. The most recent research suggests spontaneous remission might involve a combination of immune system activation, psychological factors, and possibly epigenetic changes that we don't fully understand yet.
What should I be looking for in terms of mechanisms? Document everything. Psychological state, lifestyle changes, dietary modifications, stress levels, social support systems. In the few documented cases, patients often report significant life changes, improved mental state, or what they describe as a renewed will to live. I began working with Isabella to create a comprehensive timeline of her experience, mapping her physical improvements against her psychological and lifestyle changes. What emerged was a complex picture of healing that extended far beyond conventional medical understanding. I continued seeing Isabella for weekly follow-ups over the next 2 months. Her scans remained completely clear, her blood work stayed normal, and her energy levels continued to improve. She had returned to teaching full-time and described feeling healthier and more vital than she had in years. Dr. Blackwood, I know how strange this sounds, but I feel like this experience taught my body something new about healing. Not just from cancer, but from stress, inflammation, maybe even aging.
During our sessions, Isabella began describing other changes she'd noticed. My allergies are gone. I used to have terrible seasonal allergies that required daily medication. My chronic back pain from a car accident 5 years ago has completely resolved. Even my eyesight seems sharper. These additional improvements suggested that whatever mechanism had eliminated Isabella's cancer might have had broader effects on her immune system and overall health. I documented every change meticulously, though I knew my colleagues would find such claims even more difficult to accept than the cancer remission itself. Isabella, have you considered participating in research studies? Your case could provide insights that might help other cancer patients. She was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Blackwood, I'm willing to help if it means other people might benefit, but I'm also concerned about becoming a medical curiosity, about having my experience reduced to data points and statistics. I understood her concern. Cases like Isabella's often became more about the medical mystery than the human being who experienced it. As news of Isabella's case spread beyond Meridian, I began receiving calls from colleagues around the country. Some were intrigued and wanted to collaborate on research. Others were skeptical and questioned my documentation or diagnostic accuracy. Dr. Jennifer Hayes from MD Anderson called to discuss the case. Helena, I've reviewed the materials you sent. While the documentation appears thorough, you understand how unusual this claim is. Spontaneous remission of stage 4 pancreatic cancer challenges some of our most fundamental assumptions about cancer biology. Jennifer, I understand the skepticism, but I can't ignore the evidence. What's your theory? How do you explain what happened to this patient? I don't have a theory yet. That's what troubles me most. The conversation reflected a growing tension in my professional relationships. Some colleagues viewed Isabella's case as a fascinating medical anomaly worthy of study. Others saw it as a challenge to established oncology practices that made them uncomfortable. Dr. Hendricks called me into her office 3 weeks after Isabella's discharge. Helena, I've been getting calls from colleagues asking about this case. Some are concerned about how we're handling it, about the claims we're making. Patricia, I'm not making claims, I'm documenting facts. Isabella had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and now she doesn't. That's not a claim, that's observed reality. But the implications are exactly what make this case important. If spontaneous remission is possible, even rarely, shouldn't we be trying to understand it? Shouldn't we be looking for ways to trigger or support the mechanisms that made it happen? But I could see the concern in Patricia's eyes. Institutions like Meridian built their reputations on established protocols and predictable outcomes. Cases that challenged fundamental assumptions made administrators nervous. As I sat in my office that evening, reviewing Isabella's file for the 100th time, I had no idea that her case was just the beginning. 2 more patients would soon arrive at Meridian, with stories that would force me to question everything I thought I knew about cancer, healing, and the limits of human biology. But that revelation would come later, and when it did, it would change the trajectory of my career forever. Isabella's complete recovery from stage 4 pancreatic cancer without treatment should have been the medical story of a lifetime. But what I discovered over the next 6 months would make her case seem almost ordinary by comparison. 2 more patients would walk through the doors of Meridian Cancer Institute, with stories that defied every principle of oncology I'd learned in 2 decades of practice. And when I finally connected the dots between all 3 cases, I uncovered a pattern that the medical establishment couldn't accept, and professional consequences that would force me to choose between my career and the truth. 4 months after Isabella's discharge, a 45-year-old commercial pilot named Marcus Valentine arrived at our emergency intake. He'd been diagnosed with stage 4 lung adenocarcinoma at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles 9 months earlier. The tumors had spread to his brain, liver, and bones, a death sentence with a median survival of 4 to 6 months. Dr. Blackwood, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. I know you treated a woman named Isabella who recovered from pancreatic cancer. I think the same thing happened to me. Marcus's medical records from Cedars-Sinai were devastating. Multiple pulmonary nodules, the largest measuring 6.2 centimeters, 7 brain metastases, liver involvement, bone lesions throughout his spine and ribs. His oncologist, Dr. Amanda Foster, had recommended aggressive immunotherapy, but like Isabella, Marcus had chosen to decline treatment. The statistics were clear, Marcus explained. With treatment, maybe I'd get an extra few months, but I'd be sick and weak. I wanted to spend my remaining time flying, spending time with my daughter, living as normally as possible. For the first 4 months, Marcus experienced exactly what Dr. Foster had predicted: severe fatigue, weight loss, increasing pain, and progressive shortness of breath. He'd had to stop flying, and was preparing his 15-year-old daughter for his death. But in June, something began to change. The pain started subsiding, Marcus continued. My energy returned gradually. I could breathe easier. By August, I felt well enough to take a short flight again. Last month, I had follow-up scans at Cedars-Sinai that showed complete resolution of all tumors. I immediately contacted Dr. Foster in Los Angeles. Amanda, I have Marcus Valentine here at Meridian. Can you walk me through his case? Dr. Blackwood, that case has been keeping me awake at night. Marcus had textbook stage 4 lung adenocarcinoma with extensive metastatic disease. When he refused treatment, I gave him 4 to 6 months at most. His follow-up scans last month showed complete radiological remission, no evidence of disease anywhere. I ran comprehensive imaging on Marcus. CT scans of his chest, abdomen, and brain. PET scan to detect any metabolically active lesions. Every test confirmed complete remission of his previously extensive cancer. During our consultations, Marcus described experiences remarkably similar to Isabella's. Dr. Blackwood, I started having these vivid dreams around May. Dreams where I felt like I was fighting the cancer from the inside. I could visualize my immune system learning to recognize and destroy the cancer cells. It sounds crazy, but the dreams corresponded exactly with my physical improvements. 2 months later, Helena Santos, a 52-year-old nurse from Albuquerque, contacted our office directly. She'd been following media reports about Isabella's case and believed she'd experienced something similar. Helena had been diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer at University of New Mexico Hospital 7 months earlier. Extensive peritoneal carcinomatosis, massive ascites, and pleural effusions, typically fatal within months, even with aggressive treatment. Dr. Blackwood, I was essentially drowning in fluid from my cancer, Helena said during our first consultation. They drained 4 liters of fluid from my abdomen and 2 liters from around my lungs. My oncologist said I had weeks, maybe months. Helena had initially started chemotherapy but stopped after 2 cycles due to severe side effects. I'm a nurse, she said. I've seen what advanced ovarian cancer does to people. I decided to spend my remaining time with my family instead of in a chemo chair. For 3 months, Helena's condition deteriorated rapidly. She required repeated procedures to drain fluid from her abdomen and chest. She lost 30 pounds and could barely walk across a room without becoming breathless. But in June, the same month both Isabella and Marcus had begun improving, Helena noticed changes. The fluid accumulation slowed, then stopped completely. I started gaining weight back. My energy returned. By September, I felt better than I had in over a year. Helena's recent scans from UNM showed complete resolution of all tumors and no evidence of fluid accumulation. Her CA-125 levels had normalized, and her physical examination was entirely normal. Most remarkably, Helena also reported the same vivid dreams that Isabella and Marcus had described. Dreams where I felt like I was teaching my immune system to fight the cancer. It was as if my body was learning something new about healing. 3 patients, 3 different cancers, pancreatic, lung, and ovarian, all stage 4 with extensive metastatic disease, all given terminal prognoses of months. All chose to decline or discontinue aggressive treatment, and all experienced complete spontaneous remission beginning in the same general time frame. But the similarities went beyond just the medical outcomes. All 3 patients reported vivid dreams about fighting cancer from within their bodies. All described feeling like their immune systems were learning during the remission process. All experienced the beginning of their recovery around May-June 2023, and all reported feeling healthier after their recovery than they had before their cancer diagnoses. I began documenting these patterns obsessively, creating detailed timelines and looking for additional connections. What I found disturbed me more than the individual cases themselves. When I presented all 3 cases to Meridian's tumor board, the reaction was swift and negative. Helena,
Dr. Patricia Hendricks said after my presentation, "You're suggesting that 3 patients with different terminal cancers all experience simultaneous remission. Do you understand how that sounds to our colleagues?" "I understand how it sounds, but I can't ignore the evidence." Dr. Robert Chen, our chief of surgical oncology, was more direct. "Helena, what you're describing challenges the fundamental principles of cancer biology. If spontaneous remission could happen this reliably, everything we do here becomes questionable." "Maybe that's exactly what we need to question," I replied. The room fell silent. I could see the discomfort on every face around the conference table. Dr. Sarah Martinez, our research director, spoke carefully. "Helena, have you considered that you might be seeing patterns that aren't actually there? That you're connecting cases that are simply coincidental?" "Sarah, 3 patients with terminal diagnoses experiencing complete remission in the same time frame, with nearly identical subjective experiences, is not coincidence." But I could see I was losing the room. In the medical world, anomalies are supposed to be isolated events, not patterns that suggest our understanding might be incomplete. Over the next 3 months, my relationships with colleagues became increasingly strained. My case presentations were met with skepticism. My research proposals were rejected. Colleagues began questioning my diagnostic accuracy and clinical judgment. Dr. Hendricks called me into her office in December. "Helena, I need to discuss your recent cases with you. Administration has received concerns from several colleagues about your interpretations of patient outcomes." "Patricia, I'm not interpreting anything. I'm documenting what happened. But you're also drawing conclusions that many of our physicians find troubling, suggesting that conventional oncology might be missing something fundamental about cancer treatment. What if we are missing something fundamental? Helena, you're one of our most respected oncologists, but your behavior lately has raised questions. You're keeping terminal patients on monitoring protocols longer than standard practice dictates. You're questioning established treatment timelines. Some colleagues worry you're developing unrealistic expectations about patient outcomes." I realized then that my pursuit of understanding these cases had isolated me professionally. In trying to comprehend the impossible, I'd become the impossible colleague, the doctor who saw miracles where others saw medical errors. In February 2024, a 67-year-old retired teacher named Dorothy Kim was referred to me with stage 4 glioblastoma, one of the most aggressive brain cancers. Her prognosis was 6 to 12 months even with treatment. Dorothy chose palliative care only, but 3 months later, her follow-up MRI showed complete tumor resolution. Her neurologist at Banner Health called it impossible and suggested diagnostic error, but I knew better. When I documented Dorothy's case and presented it alongside the previous 3, the institutional response was immediate and severe. Dr. Blackwood, the chief medical officer, told me, "We cannot continue to support research or documentation of cases that suggest miraculous recoveries from terminal cancer. It creates unrealistic expectations for patients and families, and it undermines confidence in our established treatment protocols." I was effectively prohibited from studying or presenting cases of spontaneous remission. My research privileges were suspended. My caseload was reduced to routine follow-ups only. On March 15, 2024, I submitted my resignation to Dr. Hendricks. "Helena, you don't have to do this," she said. "Take some time off. Maybe seek consultation to process what you've experienced." "Patricia, I've witnessed 4 people recover completely from terminal cancer without treatment. Not one person, 4 people, and our institution's response is to tell me to stop looking for answers. These cases are anomalies, Helena. They don't change the fundamental principles of cancer treatment. What if they do? What if there's something about human healing capacity that we don't understand? What if we're so focused on fighting cancer that we're missing the body's own potential for recovery?" But I could see there was no point in continuing the conversation. The medical establishment that had trained me, that had given me my career and identity, could not accommodate the possibility that its understanding was incomplete. I moved to Sedona, Arizona, where I now work as a holistic health consultant, helping people integrate conventional medical care with lifestyle approaches that might support their body's natural healing capacities. I stay in touch with Isabella, Marcus, Elena, and Dorothy. All remain cancer-free and describe continued excellent health. But the 4 cases I witnessed continue to haunt me, not because they were terrifying, but because they revealed how much we still don't understand about healing, consciousness, and the human body's potential for recovery. Sometimes late at night, I wonder how many other patients might recover if we approached cancer differently, not just as a disease to fight, but as an opportunity to support the body's own remarkable capacity for healing. That's a question I can no longer pursue in an academic medical center, but it's one that will drive the rest of my career. Some mysteries are too important to ignore, even when they cost you everything you thought you wanted. The impossible recoveries I witnessed changed my understanding of medicine forever, and despite everything it cost me professionally, I wouldn't trade that knowledge for anything.